not really. Well, that first feeling is that, if they don't know, and then I realize, well, half the things that they're talking about are committing me to a life of no return, basically. There's no solution to get the body coordination back from paralysis. There's no solution for the mental repair because the damages were said to be so extensive. I wouldn't be able to speak again. I wouldn't be able, whatever.
And so you wouldn't be able to speak again, and you were paralyzed on your left side. Is that right?
The paralysis increased later as surgeries. The neurosurgeries caused further complications. So at that stage, the paralysis was not so bad. It looked like it could be worked with. It got to a point where it was looking like it was going to be a permanent thing. But that was part of the process. The empathic listening that allowed for understanding they don't know what they're talking about allowed me to decide. It invited me to decide to take responsibility for the situation. And that was a big deciding point. I'm glad it came right at the beginning. It made a huge difference to everything I did from that point on. In terms of taking responsibility for discerning, intuitively, empathically, and intelligently. I needed the surgeons, I needed the therapies, I needed the physical therapy and all kinds of really interesting things that were a part of recovery.
They needed to be on your team to help you heal.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank goodness you had them.
So, push me with a question.
Okay, so once you knew inside, I call that the healing intention, that you were taking charge, was it that you knew you were going to heal? You knew you were going to get well? At what point did you know that? Did you make the decision that you were not going to go past the point of no return and you were going to choose life?
My decision was, it wasn't that I knew I would get better. It's that I knew I wouldn't go in the direction that all the statistics and diagnosis were dictating. Because they didn't know what they were talking about, is what I could pick up. So then I had to find out what is in store. What does life have in store when I take responsibility for this situation that I've created in my life. And I didn't know what would come of it. All I knew was that I had to do this, and then this, and then this. And I didn't mind if in the end it didn't work, because it changed the whole feeling of everything I was doing. There was something so fulfilling in the fact that I was taking responsibility in a way that honored what I sensed I should be doing. And it also honored what was available through medical science. It wasn't that I was ignoring things or rebelling, it was just, and it was surprising, the surgeons, the consultants, they all played supportive roles. Somehow they felt a sense of kinship with this initiative. So it was a huge team, and they broke all kinds of rules to allow for the unconventional to take place. For instance, the attunements. The hospital allowed the attunement servers to switch it from long distance to on-site. So there was always attunement servers there in the hospital room, during the critical times.
You mean 24 hours, there was always somebody?
There was a 24-hour attunement during critical times like surgeries.
Wow.
And there were people there maybe once a day, just for a balancing time, time of opening a space of safety, which in a hospital experience is a really useful experience, I'll tell you.
Yes.
So you spend a few years in a hospital, you really get a sense of appreciation for those open, safe spaces,
Yes.
It's like, oh, I'm alive. It's like hospitals can be pretty scary.
They absolutely can. So you, in those critical times during surgeries, you had somebody that's like they were tag teaming. for people doing the attunements.
Yeah, and the hospital allowed them
Yes.
immediate access, which
Fantastic.
was their way of bending the rules.
Yes.
It seemed a lot of players were joining the team, probably because I didn't have the spirit of rebelling against or something like that. It was, this is what I need to do, and there was some kind of common bond of trust.
And everything aligned up
Yeah.
to support you because you had made that decision very early on. And then you started to draw in the right shifts in those doctors.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny, I was thinking that, being in the right place at the right time, it isn't a matter of going to the right places. It's being right here, in myself, being who I am right now, in each situation, in each moment. And then things seem to work around that.
Yes.
If I pretend to be somebody, if I role play, I seem to lose track of that, being in the right place at the right time, awareness, sense of being. That made a big difference during the recovery. I didn't go places. Well, I mean, I did sort of go places physically, but I mean in the sense of who I am and what I'm doing, that stayed constant. And it was an important ingredient.
I think it was probably the key ingredient, because then all the attunements were able to make a difference.
They work. You're right. That is actually how they work. It's the individual receiving the attunement which determines how effective it will be.
Yes, so you'd already made your decision, and then those attunements were able to help. If you'd gone, nope, I believe the doctors I'm going to die, doesn't matter what
then
the
that's what would happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And the attunements created that safe place for you when you woke up. The attunements were happening for you to go, oh, I might stay around. It's so comfortable.
Measurable. I didn't have to think, am I feeling kind of a bit of pain because I'm really in a lot of pain? Or am I feeling, there was no doubt about it.
Wow.
I was not noticing the pain.
Yes.
I was feeling very clear.
Yes.
I knew where I was. I knew what was happening, what had happened, and what kind of listening was available was very fine, very delicate.
Yes. And I know in England they're allowing healers in a lot more, aren't they, into hospitals. So, Rodger, then you had to have surgeries. Why did you have to have the surgeries?
Well, the first surgery was because of the extensive amount of internal bleeding in the brain, so they had to relieve the pressure. So they removed a lot of pressure. They removed a lot of the skull. From that point on, the attempts to replace that missing part, like plate and stuff like that, there were 2 attempts and 2 failures. But during each of those surgeries, operations, there were mistakes made because it's so delicate when there's such a huge area of damage. And so nerves get cut that are essential to the pathways connecting to the body. It's not even clumsiness. It's going to happen when there's that much surgery in a small space of time. The surgery started on the advice to my family that I had less than a 50% chance of surviving the surgery. And the chances go down with each surgery because the immune system is weakened after each surgery and by each surgery. So by the time I was at the end there, I was not in a great condition. I was very weak, and the temptation to get to lose one's vision reaches its peak. There's a lot of pain, there's a lot of suffering. By then the attunements were replaced by my own responsibility in the matter. So in those emergency moments, attunements are a great blessing if for some reason you receive them in a good way, that way. But a person has to take responsibility for themselves. And that means taking on responsibility for all the pain and how to solve it.
meridianholistichealth.com